My name is Jonathan Hughes, and I am the Associate Director of College Planning and Content Creation at MEFA. And I've been working at MEFA for about 20 years now, and been doing these seminars ever since that we've been offering them. And just a little background while I'm waiting for folks to join us, these actual webinars, the After the College Acceptance webinars, were suggested to us by the actual colleges, because colleges came to us, MEFA, and they, as part of our advisory groups, we say, what is it that we're not doing that we can be doing? And they told us that there's a time when families start getting their acceptances and their financial aid offers, and they really need multiple colleges. And so that's how these webinars or seminars came about. A lot of folks, and don't things up for other folks, but well done, the Associate Director of College Planning and Content Creation at MEFA. And I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen now so we can look at this presentation that we're going to do. Okay, oh, here we are. Spoiler alert, we're halfway through. Okay, this is our After the College Acceptance webinars, and just briefly how to participate in this webinar. Actually, if one or just somebody can pipe into the Q&A or the chat that you can hear me and see the slides and all as well, that would be a help, because it's happened that I've been going through a presentation and realized that not everybody can see my slides, and so I'd like to avoid that if at all possible. But assuming that we're all good, and here they come right now, so that's great. And by the way, if you have any questions throughout, you can submit them through the Q&A. The audio settings on the left will allow you to control the volume if you don't want me to be too loud. It says the chat feature is disabled. Those of you who have used the chat feature just now knows that I have not disabled the chat feature. You can use it. I would prefer, if you have questions to ask me, that you use the Q&A to do that, because it's easier for me to access while seeing the slide. And so I'll answer the questions that come in the have. And I will get to them whether it's conversation with me about some of your questions, which is normal to do. I see the chat is kind of buzzing already. If you want live transcript, you can use that. Click on that, and you'll be able to have transcript. And I'm saying and hearing and I don't know what I can do about that, and I apologize. Let me try one thing here. Things I can close here. Okay. I understand people are having difficulty. Let me see. Let me put you on hold for 1 minute, and maybe if I change locations, it might be a bit easier. Hang on one moment, please. I thank you for your patience, but I don't want this to continue on for the. Okay. Okay. I'm not sure if this is going to be any better, but why don't we give it a shot? If this isn't any better, I really don't know what else to do here. But hopefully it's better, and you can let me know as we go on. Now if I can get back to sharing my screen. Thank you for your patience here. Okay. So hopefully that's better. Somebody says, so far so good. Thank you. Thank you. So that's how to participate in this webinar. And actually, you've already participated pretty well in this webinar. So thank you. Okay. It's been a bad internet corner in my house. So I've already introduced myself a few times. It's time for me to introduce MEFA, which is the Massachusetts Educational Financing Authority. We're a not-for-profit state authority. We were created back in 1982 by the Massachusetts State Legislature. And we were created with a public service mission to help families to plan, save, and pay for college. And we do that in a number of ways. When we were first created, what we were created to do was to offer a loan. And that's something that we still do, a fixed interest rate college loan. And that's something that we'll talk about later on in the presentation, actually. But of course, since 1982, since the cost of college has continued to go up and up and up, simply offering a loan isn't really enough to help families to plan, save, and pay for college. So we included two savings programs, the U Fund and the U Plan, which you may or may not have heard of. We'll touch briefly on those in the presentation as well. And in terms of helping families to plan for college, a lot of what we do now is educational sort of outreach. In a normal year, I'd say we do over 500 seminars across the Commonwealth on topics like saving for college, college financing, college admissions, this presentation here, comparing college loans. Of course, everything this year has been virtual. We've always offered everything that we do in person virtually, but of course, everything now this year has been virtual. So you can go to MEFA.org and you can see any one of those presentations recorded, like you'll have this presentation recorded and mailed to you as well. Also on MEFA.org, you'll see a lot of tools and calculators, again, some of which we're going to highlight tonight. We have blogs on all sorts of topics relating to college access and financing college. All of which is to say, really, that I don't expect you to remember or totally absorb every single thing that we're going to talk about here tonight. After this presentation, we're always here. We're a free resource for you to reach out to. If you email us, if you call us, we have a team of experts, college guidance experts that are going to be able to counsel you for free. And everything that we offer is for free, except for the loans, which you have to pay back, obviously. But other than that, we're a free resource for you to use no matter where you're going. If you're from Massachusetts, if you're not from Massachusetts, if you're going to college in Massachusetts, if you're not going to college in Massachusetts, we're there to help you out. And you shouldn't feel like you're taking us away from our job to call us, because it honestly is our job to help you. That's why we're here. And so you'll have our information at the end. If you don't have it already, you'll have my specific information too when I email you this presentation. Now, the way we always like to start these presentations is to congratulate everyone. So congratulations on your college acceptances to both the students and the parents. It's funny. I sometimes don't know how to hit this note, because it's a very good thing that you've been accepted into college and you should be proud. But I know a lot of times parents are a little nervous because they've been getting the college bills and they might feel a little apprehensive. But particularly this year, it's been a really difficult year for everybody. And I think some congratulations really is in order. If you've gotten through the year, you've gotten into college, been accepted into college, and are looking to start next year, congratulations. It's really a good thing. So before we do anything else, take a minute and be proud and be happy that next year your son or daughter is going to be headed to college. So what we're going to talk about in this webinar now to help you out is we're going to help you really to understand your financial aid offers. And this is really the key to this whole webinar campaign, is to help you understand what's there in front of you. I tell a story all the time. When my wife went to college, she applied to one college and we looked at the financial aid offer, and we saw everything lined out there, and it was all clear as day, but we still had a lot of questions. So if you've got one, if you've got 10, it can be confusing. So we'll help you to understand your financial aid offers. If you have not filed your financial aid forms yet, and so you haven't received a financial aid offer, we'll help you to figure out what your options are. Again, the sort of the meat of this program is to learn how to calculate the balance due. So you've got your aid there. What are you going to be responsible for this year? And what are you going to be responsible for perhaps the next 2, 3, 4 years, or possibly more? So we'll go through all of that. And all of that really is going into how to make a financially wise college decision, right? So how much is this investment going to cost you over the entirety of the education? And is this a wise decision, and how can you pay for this, and what are the best ways to finance this? So we're going to help you to develop a plan for paying the college bill for this year and beyond. Now, I want to talk briefly about the types of financial aid that you may have in front of you. Financial aid comes in 2 main varieties, and those are merit-based financial aid and need-based financial aid. Merit-based financial aid is awarded in recognition of student achievements. So something that the student has done, academic scholarships, for example, athletic scholarships, artistic scholarships. So the word scholarship is a clue that what you have is a merit award. Now, the things to understand about merit awards are, number one, as you may know from looking at your offers, the merit aid practices from college to college really vary. So you may see a lot of merit scholarships on one financial aid offer from a college. You might not see any on another. That doesn't necessarily mean that the college without merit aid didn't think your student was worth merit aid, or they didn't really want your student. It may just be that they don't have the capability or the practices even to offer merit aid. So some colleges who would have no problem, in terms of financial capability, just have a practice of not offering merit aid. Harvard University is a perfect example. They don't offer merit scholarships. If you do have a merit scholarship, remember your financial aid award is good for this year. And if you want to be eligible for financial aid next year, you have to file your forms again for next year. So is your merit scholarship, if you have a merit scholarship, good for this year only, or can it be renewed from year to year? If it can be renewed from year to year, you want to make sure that the student understands what they need to do in order to renew that. Most often there's a GPA requirement that the student has to meet a minimum GPA in order to renew a scholarship. If there may be other things attached to renewing a merit scholarship, if it's an athletic scholarship, maybe there's a certain amount of games that the student has to play in. Don't know, whatever it is, just make sure that the student understands what they need to do, because you don't want to miss out on renewing that scholarship from year to year. In fact, the very few times that I've had parents call me up and say that they got substantially less financial aid from year to year, it doesn't happen very often. And when it has, it's mainly because the student has missed out on renewing that scholarship for the next year. Now, most financial aid is not merit-based, but it is need-based financial aid. So these are things like grants, work study, federal student loans. These are all examples of need-based financial aid. Now, you remember if you filed your FAFSA or your CSS profile, putting in all of that income information and asset information and household information and all that stuff that goes through that formula and gives you your expected family contribution and all that. That's to determine your eligibility for need-based financial aid. And so that goes through the same formula for every family, and it includes financial aid. Everything that the federal government does is need-based. Most of what the state offers, in the case of Massachusetts, is need-based. There are one or possibly two merit programs, but most is need-based. And a lot of institutional aid is need-based as well. So those are the two main types, and you may see one or both of those represented on your financial aid offer. So here you can see is a generic financial aid, sort of sample financial aid award. And what I want to highlight about this is this highlights the three main types of financial aid that are grants and scholarships, the best kind of financial aid. It's gift aid, which is it just comes off the bill, does not have to be repaid. So if you've got grants and scholarships there, that just comes right off the bill. So that's the best kind of financial aid that there is. The second is work study. And work study is money set aside, for a student to earn throughout the year by working a work study job on campus. And there's a couple of things to understand about work study. The first being, if you have a work study award in your award offer, that's not necessarily money you have at the outset. That is money to be earned throughout the year. So the student should go, if you want work study, if you want to take advantage of the work study award, the student has to go find a work study job, work the hours throughout the year, and earn the money that they're eligible to earn through the work study program. And so what they would do, I remember I had a work study job when I was a student. I answered phones in an office for, a few hours a week. I got paid in a paycheck, and this is how it generally works. Students get paid in a paycheck just like any other job. And when I got paid, I tended to use that money as my living expenses. People always ask, can students turn around and pay tuition with work study? Yes, they can. But I tend to think that probably most of them don't. Most of them use it the way I did, and that is to pay for your living expenses. You're going out money, you're eating money, things like that, while you're in school. So if the student doesn't go out, find a job, work the hours, and earn the money, you lose that money. You don't earn that money. You don't earn that work study money. Now, colleges will handle this process in different ways. Sometimes colleges will expect students to be proactive and to approach financial aid office and find work study positions and go on look for them. Sometimes colleges will send an email blast out to all their work study recipients with the listings of the job postings. So it all just depends on college to college. So if you have questions about it, you should reach out to the financial aid office if you haven't received guidance. And that's going to be a theme tonight too. You'll hear a lot of reach out to the financial aid office. But that's the way it is. And you should view the financial aid office as a resource for you to move through and to help pay for college. So that's work study. And the third is loans. And when I say loans, I don't mean any type of loan. I don't mean a MEFA loan. That's not financial aid. I'm really talking about one specific program, which is the Federal Direct Student Loan Program. And this is the only type of loan that's considered financial aid. And there's a lot of reasons for that, which we'll get into in just a minute. So those are the three main types of financial aid. You should see one or perhaps more of these represented on your financial aid offer. Grants and scholarships, work study, federal direct student loans. Now, one of the things that makes comparing student financial aid offers, challenging is that different colleges will call the same things by different names. So you see here on our sample financial aid offer here, you've got federal direct subsidized loan, federal direct unsubsidized loan. That's a term for those federal direct student loans. Some colleges might call it a William D. Ford loan. Some colleges may call it, Stafford loan. That's an old term for it. But there was a study done a few years ago by an organization called U Aspire that broke this down. And one of the things that really made it confusing for students was colleges called the same things by different names. Different colleges called the same things by different names. So if you have questions about what is this and what am I looking at, this is when you can reach out to MEFA. We do have one-on-one appointments open that you can request, and we can have a virtual one-on-one appointment, and we can talk in detail about your financial aid offers. And you can also, of course, reach out to the financial aid office at the college. Now, those are the three main types of financial aid, the three sources of financial aid, where they can come from. We already know that a lot of it comes from the federal government, the state government, so Massachusetts, and the college themselves. There are also outside scholarships, as you know, and they're not going to be showing up on a financial aid offer from the college. But these should all be represented in the financial aid offer from the college. And you can see here on our sample letter, we have a federal grant, a federal Pell Grant. We have the university grant. We have the Mass grant from the state of Massachusetts. So we have all three sources, potential sources of financial aid represented on the financial aid offer, which they all would be if they were present. So you need to accept all or part of your financial aid award by the college deadline, which has typically been May 1st, though this year some colleges are doing it a little bit later. So you want to check the financial aid webpage of the college. So when I say accept all or part, you can take parts of your financial aid offer, but you don't have to take all of it. If you don't want to take the loans, for example, and you're in a position not to do that, you don't have to. If you want to take a subsidized portion of the loan and not an unsubsidized portion, you could do that too. So it's up to you. Now, as far as what's the difference between those two things, that's something I'm going to raise right now. Now, somebody had a question, and I want to just make sure I read it here. Wait on that question. I hope you don't mind. But right now I want to talk about federal direct student loans. And what I said before was that these federal direct student loans are the only kind of loans that are considered financial aid. In fact, the only thing that we say at MEFA that everybody should do, sort of regardless of the circumstance, is that if you're going to be borrowing at all for college, that you start by taking these loans first before you move on to any other types of loans. The reason is because these are the best options for students for a few reasons. Number one, there's a very low fixed interest rate. This year it's at 2.75%. This is a fixed rate. So the loan for the student's freshman year will not change. Next year, when you get a loan for the sophomore year, it's going to be a different rate. But actually, I skipped the biggest reason why this is considered financial aid, and that is these are really the only loans students can take them out under their own name without anybody else being on the list. Now, this is confusing to a lot of people, and I understand why, because there's so many news stories about student loans, and so many people talk about student loans. So, and you know, all the thousands and thousands of dollars that people have in student loan debt. It makes people think reasonably that students can borrow whatever they need to borrow in their own name as long as they promise to pay it back after college. It really doesn't work like that for most loans, except for this loan. This loan requires no credit check to be approved. So that's why students are eligible to borrow these loans on their own. Simply really by filing the FAFSA, the student is eligible to borrow these loans. You know, 99.9% of the students are going to be approved for these loans. The only time that you would be disqualified is if you had already federal student loans that are in default and et cetera, and there's ways to rehabilitate that. Other than that, you know, you don't have to be below a certain income. You don't have to do anything. You file your FAFSA, you're going to be eligible for at least your full unsubsidized loan. So we'll talk about the difference between subsidized and unsubsidized now. You may see these, probably all of you have, or some of you have on your award offers, both of these represented. So subsidized and unsubsidized, what's the difference? Since the student is the sole borrower on this loan and they're going to be in college, they're not expected to start repayment while they're in college. So their loan then is said to be in deferment while they are in college. While that loan is in deferment, if you have a subsidized loan, there's no interest accruing on your loan balance while you're in college. If you have an unsubsidized portion, then there is interest on that balance while you're in deferment. And that interest gets added to the repayment balance when you start your repayment, which is 6 months after the student graduates or leaves the program. So those are the two main types, subsidized and unsubsidized. You may see a subsidized portion and an unsubsidized portion on your financial aid offer. You may see only an unsubsidized portion. That's based on your financial need as determined by the college. There's a 1.05% origination fee, which is just they take the college. So your actual beginning balance at the college, the amount the college gets will be minus that 1.05%. In order to, and I said that just simply filing a FAFSA, you're pretty much guaranteed to get these, not all, but in most is. But in order to actually complete the process, you need to sign a promissory note. The student needs to sign a promissory note and complete entrance counseling. And what entrance counseling is just sort of an educational process. They go online and they take these, they go through this online process, and it sort of tells them about interest and repayments, just let them know what they're sort of getting into and what they're promising to repay and all their terms, et cetera. Now, some of the reasons why these loans are attractive, and we recommend that these loans be taken out first. But they have limits associated with eligible to borrow a total of $1,500 through the Federal Direct Student Loan Program. Sophomore year, that's going to go up to $6,500. Junior year, that goes up to $7,500, and senior year, it stays at $7,500. So there, as you can tell already, their financial aid offer. So if you've got a balance aside from that, that's often why students would or need to alternative sources of funding or alternative loans. But as I said, if you're going to borrow anything, start by taking these loans first. Now, if you do take your limit every year, $5,500, $6,500, and then $7,500 in the last 2 years, the student is going to graduate with about $27,000 of debt in his or her own name. So that's their debt that they're solely responsible for. $27,000 at the interest rate that it's at now, roughly, is going to be about $300 a month for a monthly payment. And that repayment term is defaulted to 10 years. So you don't start repayment while the student's in school. Repayment doesn't start until 6 months after the student graduates. They enter repayment. And from that point on, you get 10 years to repay. Excuse me. And it's going to be about $300 a month. Now it's a standard term. The biggest reason to me why these loans are considered financial and why there's loans for students is that there's a lot of options in how they can repay. So if that $300 or so a month or whatever it might be is manageable for them, great. If they can pay it off early, great. If it's not, if they want to see if they can get that monthly payment lower, there's about a dozen different things that the students can inquire about. They would want to speak with their loan servicer, which is going to be the company that's going to be giving them the bills after they graduate and going to handle the repayment of the loans, and talk about their options and see, how they can get their monthly payment as low as possible. They could stretch out the term from 10 years to 20 years to 25 years, possibly longer. They can make their monthly payment a percentage of their discretionary income every month. So there's a lot of different ways that they can lower that monthly payment that just aren't available with other types of loans, private loans. There are also programs like public service loan forgiveness options, where if the student is on one of those income-based repayment plans and then has the repayment term stretched out to 20 years or more, if they're working for a qualified nonprofit for 10 years, after 10 years they can apply to have the balance of their loan forgiven. If a student decides to go to graduate school after they leave undergraduate school, they can put that loan back into a deferment. There's a lot of different options that students can use, graduates can use to manage the repayment that just, as I said, really aren't available with other types of loans. Somebody wants to know, if you take a loan freshman year, are you obligated to take it all the other years? You are not. And if you don't take it your freshman year, doesn't mean you can't take it in subsequent years either. There is no prepayment penalty. That's another question. That's a good question I have. So you can make payments while the loan is in deferment and the student's in college, and that can pay down the balance, or it can pay out the interest if there is interest. Any payment is going to go to interest first. And that's a good thing to do if you can do it. You're not required to, but you can. And there's no penalty for paying early. And so move on here. So that's a good option. But we always recommend that people take their federal direct student loans first. Now, a process that you may be going through is, or you may not, is verification. And all this is that if a college has a question on your financial aid forms that you've submitted, they may have notified you that you need to verify some items. They will usually be pretty explicit in what they need. And my only real advice is to get this to them as quickly as possible, because they will not be able to finalize your financial aid award, your financial aid offer until they get that. So I was listening to this presentation the other day, and my supervisor was recounting when her children went to school and she was selected for verification. And they just wanted her to verify and provide some documentation that she really did have two students in college. Later on, she was verified that they wanted to make sure that her daughter really didn't earn enough money to file taxes. So, they might say, get us a tax return transcript if some tax information contradicts or doesn't make sense. If somebody was not required to file, if you said they were not required to file taxes, you may have to send them a non-filer statement from the IRS. If there's a problem with a name match or a Social Security, you might have to get something from the Social Security Administration. So they can send these notices to you through the mail, or if there's an online portal, a lot of colleges are doing that. That you log into. Just make sure you're checking that and make sure you're reading it. If your student's checking it, make sure your student's checking it, and just get them what they need, or they won't be able to finalize your offer. Somebody had a question about 529 plans. I'm going to talk about those later on. So that's verification. So if you're in that process, just make sure to keep in contact with the college regarding that. You don't want to lose contact with them. If you have not applied for aid yet, there is still time to do so in some ways. So you can still file your FAFSA, which is a free application for federal student aid. And if you're eligible for things like the Pell Grant, you can still get a Pell Grant for next year. And you can still be eligible for your federal student loans. The eligibility for Massachusetts state financial aid and how you qualify for Massachusetts state financial aid is to file the FAFSA. Their deadline is May 1st. So you still have time there. And actually, I don't know if that may even get moved. I don't know. But typically it's May 1st. What you have probably missed out by this point, though, on is a college deadline. So if your college has a deadline that you've missed, contact the college, see what they recommend. Still file the FAFSA because you're eligible for your federal direct student loans and state aid and things like that. You probably won't be considered for financial aid from the college if you miss their deadline. But I would still contact them anyways. Now, there are other loans like the MEFA loan, like any private loans that you may apply for that have nothing to do with the FAFSA. You don't have to file a FAFSA in order to be eligible for those. So that option is still open to you. And colleges offer interest-free monthly payment plans. And that's something that we're going to talk about a little bit later on. And those, you don't have to file the FAFSA for those either. So there are some options. So a word about the waitlist. I know some of you may have been waitlisted at colleges that your student has applied to. And, a lot of colleges are waitlisting people these days. I think last year, I don't know what toll the pandemic has taken on this or what effect it's had on it. But I know last year there was something like 43% of colleges were using wait lists, and it's a tough position to be in. But you should make plans if you're on the wait list, and not invariably, but oftentimes it's a student's first choice that they're waitlisted at, or one of their top choices that they're waitlisted at. Sometimes you have to actually formally accept a spot on the wait list from your colleges. So if a student did get waitlisted and they are interested in attending that college, still make sure that the student formally accepts a spot on the wait list. Keep in contact with that college. Keep bolstering your case for admission. So that means the student's not going to want to ease up on their grades. They, keep up your grades and if those are going to bolster your case, make sure you get those to the college after the school year ends. Keep in touch with the college over social media. Have a guidance counselor or somebody write the college to again press the case for you, and make sure that you're in touch either with you're on top of your email or visiting that college portal so that you don't miss anything. That's what you should do if you're really interested. Now, the reality is that some schools have a very, very long wait list and they never accept a student from it. So sometimes you're waitlisted at a school and you just don't hear one way or the other. And that's a sad fact, but it does happen from time to time. The other thing that you have to know about it is if you are accepted off of the wait list, then this is often after the college has granted its financial aid or the bulk of its financial aid to other students. So this may be a time where colleges are looking at the ability to pay as part of who they're going to admit to their colleges. And if you are admitted, it probably means that it may mean that you will receive minimal financial aid from the college. So just to prepare yourself for those possibilities. And also, if it's getting close to deposit time, to May 1st or whenever deposit time may be at your other choices, make sure to deposit at another school, at your next top choice school. You just don't want to be in a position where you haven't secured a spot at a college and you're out for the year. So, and it's tough because deposits are usually non-refundable. So if you make a deposit at a college and then you do get admitted at the college that you were waitlisted at and you decide you want to go there, it means that you're going to lose out probably on your deposit for the other school, whatever it may be, whether it's $50 or $500. Those deposits are, as I said, usually non-refundable. But you want to make sure that you do have a plan in place if you are waitlisted. Oh, there we go. Okay. So now what we're going to talk about is calculating the balance due. And this, as I said, is really the heart of this presentation, is to help you to figure out what you're going to be responsible for, how you're going to pay that for next year, and then really kind of multiplying that out for 4 years and sort of figuring out if you can handle that. And this is the first step in doing that. Now, this image here is from our college cost calculator on MEFA.org, and I'll visit that, and hopefully you'll be able to see my screen. So definitely let me know if you can't. But just to let you know, and it's important, I think, at this point to point this out, that there are two types of charges when you're talking about paying for college. And the first category is the one that you're looking at on your bills. Those are direct expenses, right? So those are things that show up on a bill, you know how much they cost. Those are things like tuition, fees, room and board. There are a meal plan, health insurance. Now remember, as far as health insurance is concerned, you're required to have health insurance, but if you're going to be carrying your child on your health insurance, you can waive that health insurance cost. So get in touch with the college, and that can save you some money. And you want to do that because there is a deadline to waive that health insurance. So make sure you if you haven't done that, you get in touch with the college right away. There are other types of expenses that are not listed on a bill, and those are indirect expenses. And those are things like living expenses, transportation to and from school, books, for example. Books don't show up on the bill, but you have to pay for books. So you want to do the best you can in estimating that. Visit the financial aid webpage, contact the office, find out what the cost of attendance is, both the direct and indirect charges together, or what's called the cost of attendance. Everything that is going to have to be paid for a year. And there should be estimates, although they are not always listed there on the website. Hopefully they should be. But you make sure you want to be as comprehensive as possible when you're putting this all together. So let's go ahead and take a look at this college cost calculator here. Okay, so you tell me, can you see the screen now? Are you seeing the same screen that you saw a minute ago, or are you seeing my MEFA.org here? And here come the comments. Let's see. All right, you can see it. Excellent. Okay, so it's pretty simple. So what we do here, we'll say, I don't want to call out any school in particular. So, oh, but I can't. All right, so let's say tuition at this first school. And this is something you can print off, you can download and keep. You can add up to 4 schools at once. But this is where we break down our costs. So let's say that this first school here is a public college, right? No, let's make this one a private. Let's make this one a Massachusetts private college. So it's going to cost a lot of money. So let's say that tuition is going to be $50,000. And let's say the room and board is going to be, $12,000. Books and supplies, again, these indirect expenses. So books, as it says here, books and supplies are unbilled costs. The school will provide an estimate of these expenses, and the true cost will vary. So there are ways that you can go about this. You can buy new books, or you can rent books, or maybe some colleges have what's called open educational materials, which means they're open to everybody. But let's assume that books and supplies are going to cost us $1,000. Estimate high. Transportation, I have no earthly idea. Let's say $500 over the year. Health insurance, and let's say we're going to keep the kids on the parents' plan, so that's going to be $0. Other costs, going out to eat, soap, things like that. Let's say that's going to be another $1,000. Okay. So as you can see, let's scroll down to the bottom here. What this is going to do is tabulate this for us right away. And then you can see already here, 64,500. So not a bad estimate for a 4-year private in Massachusetts. Let's say we're not Pell eligible here. Let's say we have $1,000 for our state grant scholarship. For our college scholarship, let's say we got 25,000. Whoops, that's not right. 25,000 here. And we got maybe 2,000 in outside scholarship. So maybe that's a local scholarship or something. Now our federal direct loans, let's say we've got our federal direct subsidized loan limit. This is the max 3,500 that you were allowed to have subsidized on your freshman year, 5,500, and then 2,000 and your unsub. So you get your total gift aid, 28,000, total student loans, 5,500, school specific student loans. Sometimes colleges have their own loan programs that they provide. I'm going to say that this one does not. And let's say other resources, let's say we have 5,000 in savings, just for good measure. All right. So that means that for a year, this college is going to cost us $26,000. Now, let's say college B is a public college. And that means that for us, let's say the tuition and fee cost is $15,000. I'll make it a little bit more. Let me make it $18,000 a year. Room and board is another $12,000. Well, make that a little less, actually. I think that $10,000. Books and supplies, $1,000. Transportation, well, let's say it's a little further away, so it's going to cost us a little more. So $1,000. Oops. Health insurance is a $0 again. Another cost, we're at $1,000. Okay. We're not Pell eligible. We're not SEOG eligible. We've got our state scholarship here for $1,000. We've got another college grant for, let's say 2,000 here. And outside private scholarships, again, is our 2,000. Did I say 20? That's 20. Okay, and here we go again with our federal direct, subsidized and unsubsidized to 5,500. And we've got our 5,000 here. Okay. So again, it's going to cost us about $15,500 to go to this college for a year, because it costs a lot less, but we got a lot less in gift aid. But it's still over the long run, it's gonna save us some money. Okay, and down here we can talk about work study. We didn't put work study in because remember you don't have it yet, so you can't really deduct it from the bill when you're looking to pay a balance at the beginning of the year. So if this is something that looks like it's going to be helpful to you, you can visit this page at MEFA.org, pay for college cost calculator. Again, you'll get these slides. You'll be able to see that. Okay. So comparing college cost calculator results, what's the net price at each school? So what college costs you left with? We know in this case we had $26,000 a year on one hand and $15,000 a year on the other hand. Remember to consider 4+ years of attendance at potential graduate school. So sometimes people know if they're going to go to graduate school beforehand. If you do, make sure to factor that in. There's actually usually a lot less financial aid for graduate school than there is for undergraduate school, but your federal loan limits go way up for undergraduates, for graduate school. So think about that. Select an affordable college that makes sense. So, $26,000 over 4 years is over $100,000 that you're going to have to finance. 15,000 is going to be about 60,000. They're both a lot of money, but there's a big difference still between the two of them. And so how can you figure out exactly how you're going to pay this balance and if you can afford to pay it? Once you have your financial aid offer, there's really only three ways that you can pay the balance due. The first one being past income, meaning any savings or any assets that you can have to leverage. So I've already had some questions about 529 plans. Now is when you can use your 529 plans. Obviously, that's what they're there for. In order to do that, you want to contact the holder of your 529 plan. Those can be dispersed directly to a college. They can be cashed out to you, and you can use them for college expenses. If you're going to use them, make sure that you use them for eligible expenses being tuition, fees, room and board, books, supplies, equipment, not transportation. There's an easy way to remember that, and that is you cannot buy a car with the 529 money. So just remember that. That will be the litmus test. If you have prepaid tuition bonds, like in the U plan or another prepaid tuition plan, you can contact them and have them dispersed to the college or to yourself. Any savings bonds, stocks, CDs, other investments, any gifts from, things like that. This can all be part of financing college. And exactly how to do that is always a question. People always want to know, should I spend everything up front? Should I spend a little each year? That's really up to you. It's really whatever you feel most comfortable doing. I would say normally, it's typically an easier call than it is now, with rates being very low for borrowing. But you might maybe it's splitting hairs, but it really just is. We're not advisors in that sense. So you can talk to your 529 providers. If you have financial planners or something like that, you can discuss it with them. But I guess it just makes sense of whatever return on investment you get. Is it if you're keeping your investments in and they're gaining interest or they're gaining value versus what are you going to have to pay back in loans and the interest that's going to accrue on that. Somebody has a question here I want to see, because 529 distributions always sort of do that. Can you use a 529 fund for a student's airfare to a distance college? It's a good question. I would say no, because that is a transportation cost. Somebody wants to know, they submitted their FAFSA, but do they need to apply for something special for Massachusetts state aid? No. Somebody wants to know, how do you make a payment or deposit from a Coverdell or a 529? Again, you just contact whatever company holds that asset and have them directed to either the college or to you. You just want to make sure, since this is a tax incentivized program, the tax, what's the word? We'll stick with tax incentivized program, that you want to use for an eligible expense. So if the IRS says you took this money from the 529, what did you spend it on? You want to be able to show that you used it for a qualified educational expense, so you don't have to pay taxes on those earnings. Okay, someone else has a question. If the financial letter doesn't offer a Parent Plus loan, can his parent still be eligible to apply for one? I think we get to this later, but I will answer yes. Oftentimes, Parent Plus loans are not on financial award offers. Mostly they're not. Sometimes they do show up, and it's just that's sort of a suggestion as to how you can pay for the balance due. You still have to apply for one anyways, even whether it's there or not, and be credited approved for it. So it's not actually a financial aid, a plus loan. It's a, and we'll talk about that. So these are the Massachusetts Savings Plan programs, the U Plan and the U Fund. If you have either or both of these programs, this is the number, the resource to contact to have these funds distributed to the college or to yourself. Okay, so that's past income. Present income. This is something I've touched upon already, but colleges offer interest-free monthly payment plans. Usually they get started over the summertime. There's a small fee to start them. And basically, anywhere, it depends on the college, but anywhere from $20, $30, $40 to over $100. And once you pay that fee and you get on a plan, basically whatever you can pay every month on this plan, it all goes towards tuition. So I don't know a lot of people who can pay the full cost of college out of their wages every month or every couple of weeks. But it is worth it to pay what you can out of pocket now. So especially if you got a good amount of financial aid, or even if you don't, but if you have savings and you can pay what you can out of your wages on a monthly payment plan, if you can pay $200 a month, for example, and let's say you get on a 10-month monthly payment plan, you're paying that over time, but that's $2,000. That's $2,000 that you're not borrowing. It's $2,000 that you're not paying interest on and paying back over a 10 or 15-year term. So it is an option. It's a great option to eliminate in the best cases, but probably more often minimize borrowing. So the time to enroll in these plans typically begins over the summer, so May, June, or July. You'd want to contact the financial aid office for information. Now, if you miss May or June or July, you can still probably start one of these plans. You may just have to bump up that monthly payment amount to make sure it's going to fit in the smaller amount of months. Sometimes too, it's something that colleges have been doing. These plans have typically gone throughout an academic year, but they have now been shortened to semesters at some places. So you have to get on a semester monthly payment plan and then sign up for another semester monthly payment plan later on. So just make sure you contact the financial aid office at the college to see. They use an outside provider for this service, and they will put you in contact with them, and they can go over the plans that are available to you. But it's an excellent option to really minimize borrowing, because once you're done with financial aid and your savings and your wages, the only thing that's left after past income and present income is future income. So the only thing left really is your loans. Now, remember, the student has their own loans, those federal direct student loans that they are solely responsible for. And you as a parent or a guardian or whoever it might be are not responsible at all for those. Any other loan that you may get, and this includes those Parent Plus loans, the approval for those is going to be based upon credit approval, or credit and income approval. So what this means is that students typically need a co-applicant or a co-borrower in order to be approved. So typically that means a parent, one or more parent. Now, it doesn't always have to be a parent, especially in the case of the MEFA loan. It doesn't have to be a parent. It can be anybody as long as they're creditworthy. But students typically do need somebody to act as a co-applicant on a loan. So a few things to understand about that. This is where your credit history, if you think that you may be a co-applicant on a loan, is going to be important, right? So it's going to be based upon probably your credit history and your credit score. So everyone's entitled to a free credit report every year through, I think it's annualcreditreport.com. You want to make sure you check that, because it's not at all uncommon for mistakes to appear on credit reports and for those things to negatively impact your credit score. So you want to make sure that you have time to dispute that and to have those removed and to have that reflect on your credit score before you start applying for loans. So one thing that's part of what we say is to be a wise borrower, right? So to know your credit history, keep on top of your credit report and your credit score, borrow only what you need for sure. So if there are ways for you to cut down on costs, like I said, renting books rather than buying new books, all the way up to which college you're attending, but also just not borrowing more than you need to borrow. Think in terms, once again, and I can't stress this enough, of total enrollment. So don't just look for this one year. People are going to go and see a bill, and they're going to try to figure out how to pay this bill for this year. They're going to try to stretch every dollar sometimes to make it through that first year. And you think, and sometimes, you ask people, okay, if you can just make that work for the freshman year, what are you going to do next year? And sometimes their attitude is, well, I'll worry about next year. But next year is going to come. So, if you have to make a decision that maybe a student doesn't begin at their top choice school, maybe they start at a less expensive school and transfer in later on, it's better to do that than it is to start at the more expensive school if the student has their heart set on and then have to leave. So definitely think about think about the full 4-year process, consider what major or career the student is going to be considering, if they're lucky enough to know that now. Maybe some majors you don't mind taking out a lot of money in loans for. So there are some professions that are just going to start students off with a large salary. So I'm thinking about things like pharmacy and, engineering, or, certain types of engineering, or what have you. And some are not. So that may play into a decision as to how much you're willing to spend for 4 years of college. Now, in terms of borrowing loans, we have a few webinars that are coming up about comparing college loans. So we would never say don't take this loan or take this loan or whatever, but just let you know of like what are the factors that you want to be looking at. What are the important things to know? So, for example, do you want a loan with a fixed interest rate or a variable interest rate? How long do I have to repay this loan? Who's going to be primarily responsible for this loan? So is it just me as a parent? Is it the parent, as it is in the Parent Plus loan? Is it the parent and the student, as it is in the MEFA loan? Are there ways to be removed from the loan? What happens if we have trouble paying? If my student's going to graduate school, can I have this loan deferred through graduate school? All these questions, these are things that you should know before you choose a loan. Now, as far as the timeline is concerned, you have time to do this, and you have time to research loans and to apply for loans and to have all this financing set. And we'll talk about timing in just a minute. First, I want to show you about this other calculator first, and this is our student loan repayment calculator. Now, this is only MEFA loans, and this is only this year. So this is going to sort of tell you, oh, whoops. Not applying. I don't want to apply for a loan in front of everybody. This is a sort of calculator to show you all the different products we have and what they're going to cost you. So let's say we're borrowing $20,000 and we are incoming freshmen. So let's say we'll calculate here. Oop, and we have to collect. Now, most loans that you're going to be applying for, the interest rate that you're going to get is going to depend upon a few things. For the MEFA loan, it's which program you're getting, and it's also your credit score. And a lot of loans are going to have a credit tier. So the lower your credit score, the higher your interest rate is. The higher your credit score, the lower your interest rate is. So let's say our credit score here is in the middle here. So we have a good credit score. Now, you see, these are our 5 different options. These are immediate repay loans. So these are loans that begin repayment while the student is in college. So that means you, the parent, or in very rare cases, maybe the student, is going to be making the payments on these loans while they're in college. This is, you're starting to repay interest and principal, and you're going to take 10 years to repay it. This is interest and principal, and it's going to take 15 years to repay it. So you can see here, 10 years, if you're borrowing $20,000, that's going to cost you $211 a month about. So your interest rate is around 4.75. And over 10 years, if you take 10 years to repay this loan, it's going to cost you about $5,000 in interest, $5,363 in interest. Okay. Now, if for 15 years, your interest rate is going to be a bit higher at 4.85%. But since you're stretching that monthly payment out to 15 years, it's going to be lower. Your monthly payment's going to be lower. So it's going to be about $157. But you see, you pay more interest over the long term because you're taking longer to pay it. Now, much like the federal loans, there's no prepayment penalty. So you could pick one of the longer loans or the deferred loans and pay it off early and pay less interest. There's an option here where we have an interest-only payment while you're in school. So all the students in college, they still have to make payments, but they're making, or you still have to make payments, whoever's going to do it. But while the students in school, you're only paying interest. So here we have an interest monthly payment here of $84, all the students in college, and then about $200 when the student leaves college. And you're going to pay about $10,000 worth of interest. And these are our deferred loans. So you don't have to pay anything while the student's in college. You can, but you don't have to. All of that interest, there's going to be interest accruing in deferment. These aren't subsidized loans like the federal loans. And all that interest gets added to the balance when you start repaying, which is again 6 months after graduation or leaving the school. And so your beginning balance is going to be what you borrowed plus all the interest. So if you don't make any prepayments on that and you start repaying that, that's going to cost you $32,000. So it's going to be about an extra $12,000 on that. And then this last one here is another deferred loan. And the reason that it's different is that slightly higher interest rate here. You can see a slightly higher cost. This has an option where after repayment begins, if you make the first 48 monthly payments on time, you as a parent can apply, or whoever is the co-applicant can apply to be removed from the loan. And that is, if a student can, at that point, be credit approved and they have income and all this stuff, you could be removed from that loan, and then it's just their sole responsibility. Otherwise, all parties stay on the loan for the duration of the loan. So look, these are the monthly payments here, actually. So anywhere from about $211, actually anywhere from about $150 a month to about $250 a month. So, and remember, so that's year one. So that might not sound too bad, but that's year one. So multiply that by 4, that's anywhere from about $600 a month to about $1,000 a month. That's, a good amount of money. So this is a decision you want to know you can afford these monthly payments. After 4 years, what does the student have? Let's back into this number, right? What is going to be the monthly expense for this? And can we handle this? And if it seems like, it's something that's out of our reach, what options do we have? Do we start someplace else? Do we tap another resource? Do we, talk with the student and have the student take some of the debt and have the parent take some of the debt? Now, legally, a co-applicant is just as responsible for a student applicant. And this is the case, I've heard many, many times over the years at MEFA, parents call up and say, I know it's I'm the co-applicant, but it's not really my loan. It's really his loan. It's really her loan. But, if you're the co-applicant, then that's your loan too. And you should understand that. So, another thing about maximizing all the other avenues before you get to borrowing, the monthly payment amount is going to be very important, not just to the student, but to you. These loans, as you can see here, these repayment terms go for 10, 15 years. So you're going to be living with these monthly payments times 4 for a good number of years. So this is something that you want to make sure that that you're aware of and that you have a good handle on before you start this process. Okay. So a pathway to paying the balance due. In this case, we got a $20,000 balance. If we borrowed the full $20,000, well, we know we'd have anywhere from about $150 to $250 a month to pay. Or we could chip away at it. In this scenario here, we have savings to pay $5,000 of it, $5,000 out of current wages, and then $10,000. And the $10,000 to borrow would be about $100 a month, perhaps, to $150 a month. So that's about $400 a month for a monthly payment, which you can see, it's still a fair amount of money, but it's much more doable, I think, for many families than certainly $1,000 a month would be. Just another way of saying to be a wise borrower and to use all avenues open to you before you start to borrow. Now, in terms of timing, the fall semester, schools bill by semester. So they're going to send you a bill for the first semester, the fall semester, then they're going to send you a bill for the spring semester. The fall semester bill will be sent in June or July, and it'll be due in July or August. In terms of borrowing, that means you should, I would say, give yourself at least 3 or 4 weeks before the school wants the funds to have an approved loan. For MEFA, I can tell you, you can apply for a loan. You can be approved the same day. You can do everything that you need to do in a day. And then from what happens then is that we have to notify the college. The college has to certify saying, yes, the student's enrolled here. Yes, they're, eligible to receive this money. We have to send the funds to the college. That can take a couple of weeks. But you can do what you need to do in a day. So I would say, most people typically start applying for loans. Some people apply earlier before the deposit date is even due because they want to know that they have financing, and that's fine. You can do that. Many people don't. Many people wait until the middle of the summer, but you just don't want to leave it till less than about a month or 3 weeks before the school wants the funds. And you can set up payment plans, of course, according to the college deadline, as we said earlier. Private scholarships, if you get private scholarships, if you're waiting on private scholarships, let the colleges know if they get them. You can still be applying for scholarships. Outside scholarships usually are done either through at the national level on a college scholarship search site, like the ones we've highlighted below, MEFA Pathway, FastWeb, GoingMary.com, Bold.org is one, collegeboard.org. You can search for national scholarships. Local scholarships, though, are also a really big fountain of scholarships. And the best resources for local scholarships from local businesses or organizations is usually the high school guidance counselor. And so you may want to make sure that your student is in contact with the high school guidance counselor and that they know about all the scholarship opportunities that might be available to them. These are programs that are run through the state or through New England. So the first being mass transfer. I mentioned a couple of times throughout this, maybe starting at a less expensive school and transferring into a more expensive school. And that's what mass transfer does. It's a program that's set up by the state of Massachusetts to help students to earn their 4-year degree through Massachusetts public colleges in the least expensive way possible. So you start out at a 2-year public community college and graduate with your associate's degree, and then are guaranteed admission into a 4-year public college or university in Massachusetts. You have all your credits transferred over, and thus you only have 2 years to complete your degree. And there are tiers. So if you have a certain GPA, over a certain GPA, then you can be guaranteed admission to a certain program. You can have you can apply without an essay or a application fee. If you're over a certain amount and part of the Commonwealth Commitment Program, you can actually have a tuition freeze and have tuition rebated to you if you maintain your GPA throughout your career, your academic career. So this is a really great option. I would encourage you to look at the website, mass.edu/mass transfer. Tuition Break is another program. It's run through NEBI, which is the New England Board of Higher Education. And basically what this is if you want to study a major in a public college or university in Massachusetts, but they don't offer that major in a public college or university in Massachusetts, but they do in a different New England public college, then you can study that major at that New England college at a lower rate, at a reduced rate through the NEBI program, through the Tuition Break program. And you don't even have to do anything like sign up for that program. They'll know that you're part of that program. They'll charge you that lower rate. So that's the website for that. You want to take a look at that too, if that's part of your plan. I've said a couple of times, look to the financial aid office as a resource. So learn about your financial aid. If you want to appeal your financial aid award, if you think that, they have not taken everything into account, if there are things that they're not looking at, if your circumstances have changed, even if you got more money from another college and you want to see if this college can give you a little bit more, I would always say to reach out to the for any of those things, reach out to the financial aid office and see what they can do. It could be that they can do nothing, but it could be that they can. Certainly in this year with COVID, where there have been job losses, there have been medical expenses that are not asked about on the financial aid forms. Maybe you're helping to take care of relatives. These things, colleges need to know these things so that if they have changes that they can make to your financial aid offer, they can do it. And again, even midway through the year, if circumstances change that are going to impact your ability to pay, make sure you reach out to the financial aid office. Do not be shy. Don't be worried. They have heard it all. You can call them, you can email them, you can probably virtual chat them. We always say, make a friend in the financial aid office. We have a webinar that's posted. We just did it last week or so. We had 500 people attend. We had 4 different types of colleges. We had Amherst colleges, Salem State, Northeastern. I'm forgetting the final one. But they talked about their appeals process and what they look at for appeals. And so I would encourage you to take a look at that recording. It's on MEFA.org if you have questions about financial aid appeals. Now, what's next? You can make a plan to pay an enrollment deposit as required by the college deadline, whatever that deadline may be. Definitely create a plan as a family to pay the balance due. Communication is really important. I know that sounds like a platitude, but like we have had many conversations in the past where there just hasn't been communications between parents and kids, and it's not always easy to talk about money, and this is a really emotionally fraught time and topic, and I understand that. But whether it's during college, if there has to be a transfer, or if it's after college when college loans come due, and dad thought the kid was going to pay for student loans, and the student thought that dad was going to pay for the student loans, and just make sure it can be a difficult conversation, but now is the time to have those. Utilize MEFA as a resource for sure. Reach out to us, call us, email us, collegeplanning@mefa.org. Again, you can book a virtual appointment, so you can talk to me, you can talk to one of my colleagues about your financial aid offer, and we can go through them with you. I've spent multiple appointments with the same family as they go and make their decision. So that's something that we are offering as a service. Connect with us on social media. There's our social media information, particularly about scholarships. We're always posting about scholarships, getting contacted by agencies promoting their scholarships and blasting those out. So definitely, if you're interested in that, make sure to follow us. And we have a lot of other good stuff on our social media feed as well. So now I have time for some questions. If you have questions that you want to get in touch with us later, again, you'll have my info personally, but here's our contact info. If you enjoyed the webinar, technical difficulties aside at the beginning, we would love for you to leave us a good review on Google. So let me go now and start seeing what I have here for questions in the chat. Somebody wants to know, I thought the 529 savings plan was the same as the prepaid tuition plan. Is it? No, it's not necessarily the same thing. In a sense, a prepaid tuition plan is a 529 plan, but not quite. So it gets a little esoteric. But 529 plan is, at least the way in Massachusetts, our plan, it's invested in the market. It grows without taxes. When you use it, as long as you use it on qualified expenses, tuition, board, room and board, books, fees, equipment, you don't pay taxes on the earnings. Prepaid tuition plan, basically, you can lock in the current year's tuition or a percentage of the current year's tuition, and then at a select group of schools in Massachusetts. That's the U plan, prepaid tuition plan. And as tuition at those schools rises, so does the value of your investment. And we can talk more about that later if you have questions. But about the financial aid letter and seeing Parent Plus loans. So if you're not aware, Parent Plus loan, the Plus loan is a federal loan program, and it stands for Parent Loan for Undergraduate Student. Now, when I talked about federal student loans being financial aid, that didn't include the Plus. That's only the federal direct student loans. The Plus loan, there's nothing wrong with the Plus loan. It's a fine loan, and it's a good loan. It's a good loan to have, but if it shows up on a financial aid offer, there's a couple of things that you should understand. First one being, you weren't actually granted this money. So you actually have to apply for it and be credit approved. So it's really, when it appears on a bill, it's kind of a, some colleges do it, not many. But I think of it as more as like a suggestion as to how you can pay the balance due. So parent has to go and be credit approved for that loan. And it is a parent loan. So only the parent is responsible for that loan. So you can apply for a Plus loan to go to school, whether or not it's on a financial aid offer or not. Somebody asked if they can bargain with colleges about financial aid packages, and yes, as I said, you can appeal your letter saying whatever the circumstance may be, whether it's you don't really know. I mean, it might look like I have all this money, but you don't know about this, you don't know about that. Here's more information that you may need. It could be, my student really wants to go to the school. She really, really wants to go. Is there anything that you can do to help me out? And when you do that, I remember talking with a colleague about this because people want to know, well, what are good things to say, or what's a good approach to take when you're appealing. And I would recommend that you watch that webinar. It's on MEFA.org. But in fact, why don't I'll email it to you. I'll include it in the email when I send it out. But she said that what she liked, what always made it easier for a financial aid office, she used to work in a financial aid office, was if you had a specific request in mind. So they like to know that you had a plan to pay and you just needed this from the school. Now, it's not a guarantee that you're going to get it, but it's easier for them to accommodate that request than it would be like to say, well, what else can you give me? So basically every year you'll apply for another loan to cover that year's tuition and fees. Right. So if you need money every year, a loan is basically good for a year of college. So we can't send money to a college, and I don't think any loan lenders really can send money to a college for more than 1 year at a time. So just like you have to file financial aid every year and you have bills due every year, if you need to cover that, you need to apply for another loan. And somebody wants to know, can you see if college A will match the financial aid offer of college B? Yeah, you can do that. And again, that's something that it may work, it may not. And we've had frank discussions with colleges where, sometimes they say, we go out with our best financial aid offer the first time. So there's not really much that we can do if you want us to match. There's not much we can do. Sometimes colleges will make a change. So it really just depends on the college and the circumstance. Okay, we have somebody from a waitlist here. We know. Somebody has a very specific question about the waitlist, and I want to reach out to you specifically afterwards. I don't really know the answer to your question. It's it's about whether or not their experience is typical, and I honestly don't know. So I'm going to find out and see if anybody has any info on that and get back to you. Is there anything else that anybody has? I'm going to check the chat before we go. Okay. Someone said, is there personal preference using funds against a home equity loan versus taking out student loans? Are there tax benefits to the interest on student loans like there is on home equity loans? Okay. So I can answer some of that question. I can't answer really anything about home equity loans. I just don't know that much about it, and would hate to have you take whatever I would say about it to heart in any way. But I can tell you that there are certain tax benefits in certain circumstances for student loans. So if you make under a certain amount in income, you would get a 1098E on your student loans, meaning you can deduct up to a certain amount of interest paid or interest and fees paid on your college loans. If you make over a certain amount, you don't get that. Or if you don't pay over a certain amount, you don't get that. So it's possible that there are tax benefits associated with paying student loans, but not every family is going to be eligible for them, if that makes sense. For home equity loans, I want to, well, first of all, for any tax question at all, consult your tax preparer, not a tax professional. And you should consult an accountant or a tax preparer. I think, I'm not even gonna say, but that's what's available for federal student loans. I mean, for student loans in general, not just federal student loans. Okay. All right, well, stop sharing my screen now. And I want to thank you once again for staying with me through my technical issues there. And I hope you have a good evening and a good couple of months ahead and a good year next year. And once again, congratulations to you. Thank you.